Today we are reviewing the documentary Fat Fiction.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Pop Keto, where we aim to help you live a sustainable keto and low carb lifestyle. Today we are reviewing the documentary Fat Fiction, which we have seen on Amazon Prime recently.
As part of our keto journey, one thing that we have determined to do is to keep learning. I think it's really important to understand why you are choosing or not choosing to eat certain foods. Which is why when we saw this, we thought we'd really like to see this. And now what we would like to do is share some of the key takeaways.
So the blurb for Fat Fiction just simply says, Fat Fiction reveals how the United States government relied on questionable evidence to support one of the most damaging public health recommendations in the history of our country, the low-fat diet. And that's really where it jumps off from. So the main spine of the movie is they have 3 volunteers who volunteer to do a different type of diet for 2 weeks. Yeah. The first diet they do for the first week is what we would call a keto diet, high fat, low carb. Yeah. And in the second week, they switch to a low fat, higher carb diet, which is the recommended US diet at the moment, and then they see the results and compare, and just to tell a bit of a story of how this diet came about and the effects of that on health in the United States.
So the main thing that we wanted to, learn from this was understanding how our diet affects our health and also how it plays a role in prevention of diseases.
All right, so the first thing that I want to sort of chat about was the experiment that was on this documentary and what I thought it was going to be and how it actually played out. Now, when I heard they were going to be doing 1 week of keto and then another week of a high carb diet, I thought, you know what they're going to do here? They're going to track weight, and that's not going to be very fair. Often when you start keto, in the first week, you lose a lot of water weight. Your body uses a lot of water when it's digesting carbs, and because it's not digesting carbs so much, you do lose a lot of water weight. And it's also why you need to have a lot of electrolytes when you're starting keto. So what I thought they were going to do is go, okay, a week on keto, you've lost a lot of weight. A week on the other diet, well, you're obviously going to put that weight back on because you're eating carbs again. And I was really ready to be skeptical. You know that we do keto, and I was ready to call them out on that. But that's not what they did. So during both the first and second weeks, they actually tracked blood sugar levels and the insulin response to the foods that were being eaten. And that was actually really interesting.
It was really interesting. I think they showed a graph, of running these 2 separate weeks of the way that they ate and just seeing the difference in terms of, so when they did the high fat diet, their blood sugars were fairly straight, weren't they? But when they went onto the high carb week, you can see these big spikes, and I was really surprised in just seeing that the impact in that difference. And the other thing I found interesting as well was the people themselves, how they spoke about how they felt. And when they were doing the week 2, when they were doing the high carb, they were almost like, I want to go back to the high fat. I felt better. And you can see they felt, I think the big thing that they kept saying was that they were hungry. They were hungry. They couldn't wait to the next meal because they were hungry. So those sort of things were really interesting.
So that experiment that they did, I actually found really interesting, and seeing the results that came out of that.
So one of the big takeaways for me from this documentary was challenging that mindset of eating low fat to lose weight. And that's something that we have known all our lives. And being on our keto journey, so we've been on this a bit over a couple of years now, it's been a big shift. And again, it's been a gradual one, but just it's sort of goes against common sense. Is that the right word? To eat fat to lose weight.
And that's the thing, isn't it? We're taught from such a young age in primary school and through high school that low fat is the way to go. And that's not the case. And it's one of the biggest challenges that I faced when we started keto, the mental challenge of making yourself eat these healthy fats.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was, again, one of the big takeaways for me from this documentary is that challenge of low fat equals weight loss, which they've actually put out there that it actually hasn't been proven that having a low-fat diet is healthier. It has not been proven. So that was like, wow. So again, this is one of those things that we'll like to go away and do further research on. As part of this discussion of low-fat being healthier, they actually presented some data which was really interesting in terms of from around the time where low-fat was encouraged and it was, I guess, more widely embraced. some of the data that they showed was fascinating in terms of the increase in type 2 diabetes and heart disease, things like that. So just seeing a fair spike from around the time that this was really put out there. So it would be interesting to go and have a look at this information for yourself and just see what data's out there to show that correlation.
I think it's interesting that as that low fat diet was pushed out, foods that were being processed were having their fat taken out of them. But to replace that and to keep them flavorful and keep people wanting to eat them, they replaced them with sugar, and a lot of sugar.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and we've talked a lot about reading labels, and this is why it's really important, especially when you're looking at low fat. Just have a look at how much sugar there is, and you'll see exactly that. So obviously, fat has a lot of flavor. It's delicious. I mean, if you've been doing any sort of keto, you'll know how yummy fat food is. Good fats, that is.
Yeah.
So with the fats, when that's taken out, need to make it taste better, need to put the sugar in so that people will keep buying, because if it's not going to taste good, they're not going to eat it. So the sugar has to go in. But the problem is with the additional sugar that's now being put into this low fat food, is it's causing inflammation. And the problem with inflammation is that it now will promote the sort of diseases that we really typically don't want to have.
I think for me, one of the other things that stood out amazingly in this is the relationship between bad food and type 2 diabetes, and how it's actually reversible with just diet without needing the medication. Now, we're not doctors, so talk to a medical professional if you want to do something like this. And just seeing how there was a doctor in this documentary who was changing people's lives just by changing their food, and they're actually coming off their diabetes type 2 medications. Some of them having it reduced, some of it off it completely. And it just doesn't seem that this is common knowledge, that just by changing someone's diet alone can have such a massive effect on their health. That's
something that I think his name was Dr. Mark Hyman, and he talks about food being medicine. So it's a matter of just having that awareness of just how powerful the food that we eat really is.
There are quite a few experts who contribute to this documentary, and Lisa's mentioned one of them, Dr. Mark Hyman, and he's an expert of functional medicine, but there's a few other people in there who are of note that if you don't know them, I'll keep going. And there's a few people in there of note who, if you don't know them and you haven't heard of them, they're worth hearing. They're experts in their field, they know what they're talking about, and it's going to help you learn more as well. So Dr. Jason Fung, he is a diabetes expert. Professor Tim Noakes, now he is a doctor in South Africa who actually got taken to a medical tribunal over subscribing one of his patients a high-fat diet. It took them 4 years to drag him through this, and at the end of it, so it took 4 years to take him through this trial where he was accused of malpractice over this issue, and they cleared him, and he basically proved medically that a high-fat diet is good for you. So if you don't know him, definitely go check him out. That's just a few of them. There's a few more people in there who are worth looking into, so go and have a look. Well, did you like the movie? Did you like the documentary?
Yeah. I think what I liked about it is it's challenging our thinking and our understanding, and obviously, like we've said 100 times, we like to keep learning, and just hearing these different perspectives from different experts in these different fields, where some are more medical science, or if they're specialists in diabetes, or things like that. I'm fascinated with what they know, but also I'm fascinated by the research and what that is showing, or what even research is excluding, or things like that, and how they do research. Again, that will help me / us with our own, when we're doing our own digging into and learning and understanding what various research results are. It's good to understand what are the conditions that are involved in that research.
Yeah, I'd echo that, and I would definitely recommend people watching it. It's really interesting. It's really well presented. It's an hour and 40 minutes, but it doesn't feel like it drags too much during that. No. It's actually really interesting. They've got investigative journalists who are involved as well, and they're just presenting facts as well that they've looked into, and I would definitely recommend it if you are looking into keto, or if you're on keto and wanting to continue educating yourself. All right, so let's give it a rating. Out of 5 avocados, out of 0 to 5 avocados, what would you give it?
I guess a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, 4.5. I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
really enjoyed it. Yeah, so we would definitely recommend you have a look. Fat Fiction is the name of the documentary. We saw it on Amazon Prime. Have a look for where it's available near you. If you have already watched it, give us some feedback in the comments, or if there are other movie, video things that you recommend we should watch. I mean, we've talked about we haven't done a video on it, but we've mentioned the documentary The Magic Pill, which is also really good. But if there's ones that we don't know about, please let us know in the comments and we'll have a look at them as well. Other than that, everyone, stay happy, stay healthy, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.